Hi, welcome to Self-Generated. My name is Steve. I am the host and creator of this series. And on Self-Generated, we explore the ideas of what it means to be human, our thoughts, our actions, our belief, our psychology, civilization, society, fundamentally what makes you you, the world we work in and live in, and how it actually works versus how we think it works. And we're going to continue that exploration with the idea of conspiracy, misinformation, how we take information now. We're going to do a brief explanation about Milton and Helene, the recent hurricanes, the one that's going on right now. And that reason being is that you yourself, throughout your day, can pause and look at the information coming in so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about for yourself. And then we're going to explore how we individually are solely responsible for figuring out what the fuck is what, because you cannot any longer fully 100% with certainty trust all of the systems that are out there. You can't just take one person that you think is true and just follow them. We have to learn ways to be more I guess the idea is media literate, but even more so, it's not even about media literacy. It's just about being literate, being aware, and understanding that a lot of what's out there you have to take with a grain of salt, no matter where it comes from. And that's what we're going to explore. Well, when it comes to Milton, it has not hit yet as recording this. It is a very large, dangerous storm that's going to hit Central Florida and cause a shit ton of damage, hurt people, and change people's lives. And this isn't to minimize any of that. This isn't to undermine any of that. This is to explore that right now a real deal, game-changing event is happening. And that during those times, people promote stories, misinformation, conspiracies, and that this is an ample opportunity for those who are not involved in the Milton, that don't have any skin in the game, that can step back, be present, be paused, be mindful, and see for themselves how these things come about and how they affect us. And that the idea is it's not just to make fun of conspiracy theorists. It's not just to advocate for systems that somehow filter this. Quite the opposite. This is about you individually figuring out how to determine what is real, what is important, who's saying what and why. Because there are no systems out there that you can trust implicitly. There's not a single person on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube, a TV channel, a journalist. There isn't a single person you can put in your pocket and go, I can just trust implicitly everything they say. We live in an age where everything can be fact checked because you have the internet. But we are actually in the time of the greatest amount of misinformation. Why? Because people just take in what initially comes to them. They trust the source, and don't look into the idea. And that there's a lot to conspiracy theories and misinformation that we don't think about. We think about it as a very direct, purposeful story to make somebody feel better, or misguide, or alienate, or what have you. The thing is that there is, in fact, conspiracies out there that were true. So you can't just say, oh, it's a conspiracy, therefore it is bullshit. And that black and white thinking is part of the problem. And so the one way to look at it is that a big conspiracy going on right now with Milton, for example, is that it's being controlled by some aspect of the government in order to affect the outcome of the election. Now, obviously, there's, oh, wow, that's crazy, right? But the point is that it's not just people like the normal fringy folks or the people online. It's, the Alex Joneses. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene, members of Congress, people that are part of the party, people who should have authority and know. And that's a problem because people are going to look at that and then create their frameworks of understandings based off of this story, which is not true. Now, I can't say 100% for certain that the government doesn't have the capability of controlling a hurricane and blasting it into Florida. But if you just look at it with basic logic to see if this is one of the true conspiracies, well then, the guy who they're talking about is being made to lose was in control of this weapon, or at least should have had access 4 years ago when he was president. He didn't seem to know about it. And then not only that, this is coming from a group of people who don't think that climate change is real, but somehow think that our government has hidden the ability using lasers to pinpoint accurately manipulate weather. Now, I'm not saying that you can't manipulate weather. Cloud seeding and multiple other technologies do exist. But what I'm saying is the idea that they could perfectly control a hurricane and slam it into Florida is asinine. But why? Why would somebody believe that? Why would that be true? Why would somebody need that to be true? Because when I talk about, what I talk about here is how we think, active inference, embodied cognition, the extended mind. If that's actually true, we're creatures of certainty. So what conspiracies do is that they offset that sense or lack of certainty. Because people go, why would somebody want to believe this nonsense? That the moon landing was a hoax, that 9/11 was an inside job? Because that secret knowledge, knowing those things, offsets their certainty. So what I mean by that is that if you are troubled by a lot of things that are going on, like for example, Milton, let's say the fact that it's a bunch of novel things happening, a storm that rose to a level never really seen before, historic, in an area that's not seen, during a time of year that's not seen, going in a direction that's not seen. There's reason to go, hey, this shit doesn't make sense. I get that, that's fine. But the point is, instead of going, oh shit, this is the new normal, we shit the bed, this is our new reality, people don't want to hear that. They'd rather hear that some secret cabal is in charge. Just like when it comes to the Illuminati. I'm not saying that there aren't big problems with all of our organizations, but what I think is that no one is in charge like we think they are. We'd prefer it to be that way. We would like it to be that way. That gives us comfort, confidence, and offsets our certainty of the situation. But it's not true. And it's because we are creatures of story. We act like we live in the real world, that we see the real world and we act accordingly, but we don't. We deal with how we deal with our internal signal when things challenge us. For example, a hurricane that can't be controlled, can't be stopped. Well, let's share a few stories that make me feel more powerful. Let's put together a few things that help offset that feeling. And it's not thought, it's not rationale, it's piss poor emotional regulation without any real understanding. And then the point is that it's awful, these stupid misconceptions, these things that aren't true. But what the real problem for me is that they offset our ability to look at these other things that are crazy and are true, because conspiracies are supposed to be laughable. So for example, I don't think that Milton was controlled. I don't think that that's being controlled, and that there's some magic government conspiracy in there. But how about, have you ever heard of this thing called Vietnam? Did you know it started through something called the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was supposedly we were attacked by North Koreans, or supposedly we were attacked by the North Vietnamese. Guess what? We made it up. This isn't me saying that. This is fact. We made it up. It was a conspiracy to go to war. Were you aware of that? It's fact. Were you aware of that? You know why? Real conspiracy. They exist. Tuskegee Airmen, they were exposed to syphilis, not treated, suffered and died. Real conspiracy. MK Ultra, ever hear of that one? That was a big one when I was a kid in the 90s. That the CIA tried to play around with mind control. Everybody laughed it off. Well, guess what? Not only was it real, the guy who was the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, he was tested on at Berkeley under this program. You know why? Some conspiracies are real. You know why you thought that one was fake? Because we laugh at conspiracies. Because stupid people talk about stupid things to make themselves feel better. And that helps hide the real uncertainties that are happening. That helps hide the real travesties. So for example, do you think 9/11 was an inside job? I don't necessarily think that. But you know what it does hide? It hides the fact that the Saudis were definitely involved. We don't talk about it. Why? Because the nonsense of the bullshit conspiracies that we got to tow around that devalued and dissolved the real searches. Conspiracies only exist in government? That's not true. You think government's got the exclusive rights on conspiracies? American business, the core of it is conspiracy. How can that be? What are you talking about? Enron, FTX, Theranos, Bernie Madoff, any number of companies that we don't know that have collapsed yet. The reason being that they continue to go on is that they're false. It's a conspiracy. People conspire to hide it. The great financial crisis, that thing that almost no one went to prison for, that fucked up the entire world, that was a conspiracy. That was a conspiracy. Companies hid it. Credit rating bureaus falsified documentation. It was a conspiracy. You know what happened? Fuck all. Nothing. Because we only promote and talk about the nonsensical, flat earth, all these other things to make fun and eliminate and dissolve the ability to even look and realize that some conspiracies are true, and that it's not about automatically assuming anything. If you do that, you are behind the 8 ball. You cannot automatically assume anything. You have to be able to at least look one more time. And if you don't build yourself for that, well then, the world will continue to run on stories, on what we want to be true, not what is true. And that misinformation will rule the day. And a conspiracy will rule the day. And not the and what I mean by that is that real conspiracies will rule why we can't see them. Because we're talking about faked moon landings and other hollow Earth, all sorts of other things. The AI is altering images for the Milton satellite images to make it look worse. All of these things are helping people feel more comfortable, more certain, and in control of their world through story, because we're creatures of active inference. You don't see reality for what is. You experience things based off of what you want them to be, what you plan them to be, what you need them to be. And if you don't pause, you don't think about it, you perpetuate nonsense. That's part of what conspiracies are. And so the thing is, as you run into these, it's not to immediately block them. It's not immediately to ignore them. It's not to just make yourself feel better by saying, hey, this person is stupid, look how stupid they are. Address them. Say, I don't think this is true. I don't believe you. You know, one of the reasons that these things perpetuate? Well, I'll share a little article I found here recently that was talking about how 80% of misinformation and false information is really by 0.1% of the population. It's a very small amount of people who really run us, very small amount of people who perpetuate this. If you see 1 million views, you'll see 10,000 comments. The squeaky wheels get the grease. And that if the real problem with all of these things, what makes these things true, what makes these things so loud, is not the perpetuating of the people who believe it. It's the silence from the people who read it and don't think it's true and don't engage in any way, shape, or form. It's not to go in there and go, hey, you're a moron, blah, 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 blah. No. It's to go, I don't believe you, this is false. To let your voice be heard. To take away the volume from the conspiracy, from the story, and not to put in your own story to make yourself feel better, to belittle the other person, because then they will not be able to see anything. They will become more defensive. And in the end, that's only to make yourself feel better and not to deal with the situation. To really deal with the situation is to look at it, go, hey, you know what? I don't think this is true. I don't think anybody should share this. Or if it wants to be true, give me more information. I'll show you here. There's plenty of people all over X been posting pictures of clouds in completely natural ways and that are out of date, that aren't even related to the hurricane, and that they go, wow. They still press it. Even when proven that it's not what they're talking about, they press it. This area's been geoengineered for years. It's nonsense. It's people who are trying to create their brand, who aren't without their own awareness. They're not aware that this is bullshit. They're just self-regulating. And they think that everybody else is their enemy because they experience what they believe to be true. Just like you, because that's how we're built. Our world is self-generated. So the only way we're going to fix it is through ourselves.